I now declare the August agenda briefing forum open at 6:30 p.m. and welcome all those in attendance. I now invite Councillor Hong to read the acknowledgement to country.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The City of Melville acknowledges the Bilberman people as the traditional owners of the land on which the city stands today and pays its respect to the Whadjuk people and elders both past and present.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hong. I now draw your attention to the disclaimer on the screen. The affirmation of civic duty and responsibility on the screen. The advice of audio-visual live streaming and recording on the screen. The purpose of the agenda briefing forum on the screen. Okay, thank you. Since we have members in the gallery, to assist me with the smooth running of our meeting, if you plan on asking a question during public question time and you haven't already submitted the question to us in writing, it would be appreciated if you could complete a question time form found on the table to your left and hand it to an officer prior to the commencement of public question time. Now we are on to item 2, attendance and apologies. We have the following councillors attending electronically with my permission. Can you please confirm your attendance? Councillor Green?
Yes, present.
Thank you. Councillor Spanbrook has indicated she will be attending electronically, but I understand she hasn't arrived yet. There are no councillors providing an apology for this evening. And finally, Councillor Wheatland is on an approved leave of absence. Item 3, declarations by members. We now move on to declarations by members. Are there any declarations by members who have not read and given due consideration to all matters contained in the business papers presented before the meeting? Declarations by members who have received and not read the elected members' bulletin. Item 4, announcements by the presiding member. Approved deputations. 2 deputations have been approved for tonight's meeting from Mr D Porter of Mount Pleasant in relation to UP 2581, Lot 1 and Lot 2, number 55 and 55A, Kishorn Road, Mount Pleasant, 7-storey multiple dwelling development. And Mr P Eggleston of Applecross in relation to motion with notice 15.4, notice of motion Applecross Ferry Terminal. I will call you forward to the discussion of these prior to the discussion of these items to make your deputation to council. Now, approved written submissions. 1 written submission has been approved from the City of Melville Residents and Ratepayers Association in relation to UP 2577 New Council Policy State Administrative Tribunal. This information has been circulated ahead of the meeting to elected members and a copy will be included in the notes of this meeting. Number 5, disclosures of interest. Can the Head of Governance please advise if there are any disclosures of interest for this evening? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you, we have a disclosure from yourself in relation to item E2574, Kearns Crescent Renewal. You are declaring a proximity interest and have elected to leave the meeting. We have a further declaration from you in relation to item UP 2580, Canning Bridge Activity Centre Plan Review. You are declaring a financial interest in this matter and again have elected to leave the meeting. We have a declaration of interest from Councillor Terry Lee in relation to item UP 2580, Canning Bridge Activity Centre Plan Review. Councillor Lee is declaring a proximity interest and will leave the meeting. Councillor Lee is also declaring an interest in item UP 2578, short-term accommodation. This is a financial interest and Councillor Lee will leave the meeting. Councillor Lee is also declaring a financial interest in item UP 2581, 7-storey building, 55 and 55A, Kishorn Road, Mount Pleasant. Councillor Lee will leave the meeting. And finally, a declaration of interest from Councillor Scott Green in relation to item E2579, Karoonda Change Rooms upgrade. Councillor Green is declaring a proximity interest and will leave the meeting. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Ms Newman. Now, are there any further disclosures from elected members?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just flagging that I will be submitting a impartiality interest declaration for item UP 2581, lot 1 and 2, 55 and 55A Kishorn Road, Mount Pleasant.
Councillor Spanbrook has now joined the meeting. Can you please acknowledge your presence?
Hi, thank you very much, Madam Mayor. I'm here.
Thank you, Councillor Spanbrook. Councillor Green.
Yeah, I just had a quick question about the protocol of leading a meeting through Teams. So I'll need to physically leave the team meeting, I presume?
Ms Newman will advise you.
Thank you, Councillor Green. We'll disconnect you from the meeting at the appropriate time and then we will give you a call via Teams for you to rejoin.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, are there any further declarations by further disclosures from elected members? If not, can I... now we're going to public question time. So public question time is now opened at 6:37. Questions received in writing prior to the meeting. Questions have been received with notice this evening. If we have the questioner asker in attendance or have a representative to ask the question, could you please make your way forward to the microphone to ask your question when called? If there is no one in the audience to ask the question and the question is not taken on notice, the question and response will be provided in the notes of the meeting, which will be available to the public on Friday the 15th of August. So, Mr P Eggleston of Applecross, would you like to come forward and ask your questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you for inviting me to the meeting. I'm a resident at the Waterfront Apartments in Applecross and also a representative of the Canning Bridge Ferry Action Group. So I have a question in two parts. The first part is, how does the city propose to respond to and manage the consequential impacts of the proposed ferry landing, including bus and traffic congestion in the Canning Bridge precinct? And then the second part to my question is, what engagement is proposed with local stakeholders regarding the parking options associated with the proposed ferry landing at Canning Bridge? Thank you.
Acting Director of Planning will respond to your question.
Thank you. The City will be meeting with the Public Transport Authority representatives and raising questions as to what considerations they've given to the mode of transport which patrons of the ferry service are expected to use to get to the ferry terminal. The City also plans to raise what considerations have been given to the impacts of such movements on Canning Highway, the local street network, and how modifications to any bus routes could assist in easing any foreseen additional congestion. Any advice from the Public Transport Authority will be able to be reported to Council and will be used to formulate a response from Council. And into the second part of the question, the response is, as part of the discussions with the Public Transport Authority, questions will be raised in relation to the Authority's consideration of the provision of additional public parking for the patrons of the ferry service within the context of expected numbers of the ferry, ferry patrons and the expected modes of transport to be used by patrons to get to the ferry terminal. In addition to this, the City will give further consideration to the control of existing public parking following the receipt of the further information from the Public Transport Authority. Once the City has this additional information, consideration will be given to how the City manages this parking within the vicinity of the ferry terminal and what level of engagement occurs with stakeholders.
Thank you, Mr. Free. Are there any further questions from the gallery? Okay, if there's no further questions, I declare the public question time closed at 6:41. Thank you. Councillor Spanbrook, you have your hand raised. What would your question be in regard to? We can't hear you yet. We can't hear you. Okay, we'll come back to you, Councillor Spanbrook. We seem to have a problem with sound. Okay, so moving on to item 7, awards and presentations. This item will be dealt with at the ordinary meeting of council. Item 8, applications for new leave of absence. The item will be dealt with at the ordinary meeting of council. Confirmation of minutes. The item will be dealt with at the ordinary meeting of council. New business of an urgent nature. There is no new business of an urgent nature. Identification of matters for which meeting may be closed. The following items have been identified as having confidential attachments. E2579, RFQ 242514, refurbishment of change rooms at Karoonda Reserve, and UP 2581, Lot 1 and 2, 55 and 55A, Kishorn Road, Mount Pleasant, 7-storey multiple dwelling development. Should elected members wish to discuss the confidential attachments, the items will be held to the end of the meeting and I will call for a motion to go behind closed doors. Can I get an indication from elected members if there are any questions in relation to the attachments to these items at this point? Councillor Spanbrook, you still have your hand up, so I'm imagining that's a previous question you're going to ask rather than wanting to talk about attachments. Okay, you can always send a message to us. Okay, so we'll continue on discussing this item as long as the confidential attachments are not referred to. Item 12, there are no petition items for discussion this evening. 13, adoption of recommendations en bloc. This item will be dealt with at the ordinary meeting of council. We're now moving on to reports. For the convenience of those providing a deputation to this evening, I will bring forward item UP 2581, Lot 1 and 2, number 55 and 55A, Kishorn Road, Mount Pleasant, 7-storey multiple dwelling development. I believe Councillor Lee has an interest in this, so we'll wait for you to leave then.
Hello.
Yes, Councillor Spanbrook.
Thank you. I was just wanting to know, with being online in a meeting with the ABF, are we required to have our camera open? Because I have noticed in past ABFs that they have not been opened with other councillors online. So I just thought I wanted confirmation on that, please.
Ms Newman, Head of Governance.
Thank you for the question, Councillor Spanbrook. It is preferable that you have your camera on at all times when you're participating in the meeting. If your camera is off for any length of time, we will record you as being absent from the meeting. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yes, Ms Newman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just advising that Councillor Hong has also declared an impartiality interest in item UP 2581. Councillor Hong will remain in the room for this matter. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so we now have Mr D Porter. Will you please make your way to the microphone to make your deputation? You will have 10 minutes to speak with a further 5 minutes for elected members to ask you questions. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, councillors and staff. Thank you for allowing my deputation. My name is David Porter. I represent the owners of Kishorn Court at 58 Kishorn Road in Mount Pleasant, which is opposite the proposed development. The owners have noted that the officer recommendation is for approval, but consider that a construction, traffic and workforce parking will adversely affect their businesses. The traffic impact statement does not address these and makes an assumption regarding the existing traffic in Kishorn Road. Kishorn Road is a two-way, one-lane road due to permitted on-road parking. The owners don't object in principle to the development, but request that there be a development condition requiring the preparation and acceptance of a construction traffic management plan. This traffic management plan should also consider the collective impact of the construction by the city of the Esplanade civic space, which is immediately opposite the proposed development. That's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr Porter. Does anybody have questions? Elected members? Yes, Councillor Edinger. Oh, please remain standing. Questions from elected members. Councillor Edinger.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you for your deputation. My question is there anything stopping the city from requesting a traffic management plan and a construction management plan be prepared for a development of this size? Thank you.
That's a question for the officers. We're looking for questions for
My apologies.
Mr Porter. Does anybody have any questions? All right, thank you very much, Mr Porter. We'll proceed to the officers.
Thank you.
Now, Mr Free is available to answer questions, Acting Director of Planning. Now, he can take questions on the item, but not on the confidential attachments at this point. If you do want to discuss them, we do need to go behind closed doors later. Yes, we also have the consultant, Mr Pope, from Actus Planning. Okay, so first of all, we'll start off with Councillor Edinger's question to Mr Free. Thank you.
Do I need to restate my question, or you're okay? I'm just wondering if there's any barriers to the city requiring the development of a transport management plan, or a traffic management plan, or a construction management plan for a construction of this size. Thank you.
I'll just have Mr Pope confirm for me. I suspect there's a condition in there requiring a construction management plan. And that could easily incorporate construction vehicles. In constructions like this on these sorts of streets where the tradespeople park, it is a matter that we do need to give some consideration to. So we might just review the condition if it's not covered by the existing wording of the condition. It could certainly be added in.
Thank you, Mr Free. Councillor Robbins?
Thanks, Madam Mayor. My question was largely similar. So there is an advice note about there is a condition requiring construction management plan, and then the advice note also talks about the construction management plan. So similar to Councillor Edinger, my question is whether it's possible for us to include a requirement that the construction management plan addresses Mr Porter's concerns, which is about traffic and parking during the construction phase. So I guess the traffic management plan, my understanding is that is for, it talks about how traffic will be managed once the development is approved and operational, whereas I think Mr Porter's concerns are about the traffic and parking issues during the construction period. So, yeah, my question is whether we can include a bit more detail in that condition. And then secondly, just wondering why the advice note that refers to the construction management plan, why is that an advice note, and is it possible that advice note is included as a condition rather than an advice note? Thank you.
Mr Free?
Yes, thank you for the question. We can certainly add into that condition that construction parking needs to be covered by the construction management plan. We can certainly do that, and we'll review the wording that's in the agenda tonight, but before the council meeting, and if it needs to be changed, we can certainly make that change. But I'll have Mr. Pope just refer to the footnotes.
Through the Mayor, as pointed out, there is a condition 3 for a demolition and construction management plan. Now, per advice note 2, it basically spells out what the city will look for in terms of a construction management plan. However, advice notes do not hold any weight to a planning condition, but it's simply to advise the applicant of what the city's expectations are. Per condition 3 for the construction management plan, in broad terms, it is to the satisfaction of the city, so there's going to be some flexibility there, even if it's not specifically mentioned within the advice note, but it is certainly something that we can look at revising, whether that be in the condition or the advice note itself.
Thank you. Are there any further questions? Councillor Barber.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, just a first question. What accessibility do the adjacent neighbours have to access these plans? Are they disseminated personally to them, or do they have to go to the city's website?
Mr. Free?
Just a clarification on which plans are we referring to?
Well, the construction management plan and the traffic management plan, do the adjacent neighbours be given these, or do they have to go and access them themselves?
Look, I'll need to take that question on notice. I'm not 100% clear on what the City of Melville's process is in terms of the availability of those plans.
I imagine a construction such as this, it would be nice if we could let the adjacent neighbours know what's happening. That would be my thought. And the only other one, and forgive my ignorance, do the developers organise the traffic management plan, or do we?
Mr. Free? Mr. Pope?
Through the Mayor, the construction management plan, and if that's inclusive of the traffic management plan, that is prepared by the applicant, and depending on the level of detail that the city requires, it could be through the applicant's expert traffic consultant, but then it will be reviewed internally by the city's engineering team.
Councillor Edinger?
Given the city has previously had issues with cranes intruding into airspace over adjacent properties, I'm wondering if that is being considered and dealt with appropriately as part of this project.
Mr. Pope?
Through the Mayor, it's not a valid planning consideration pursuant to the deemed provisions. However, that is something that can fall under the construction management plan. Now, if that's an issue that whether that be any of the staff or councillors may have, it is certainly something that could potentially be addressed through the construction management plan.
Okay, Councillor Robbins?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a question about condition 16, which refers to a notification of the Land Transfer of Land Act over the certificate of title, which talks about the transport noise. I guess firstly, just questioning, is that referring to transport noise from Canning Highway? And also, where does this condition originate? Is it something that the city, or in this case maybe the consultant, just thought should be included? Does it come from Department of Planning, WAPC? Are we taking guidance from somewhere? Thank you.
Mr. Pope?
Through the Mayor, transport noise is a consideration under State Planning Policy 5.4, Road and Rail. The condition reads as a fairly standard condition all throughout the state, and it's purely a notification on title advising any prospective purchasers that noise may have some impact on their future purchase.
Okay, Councillor Green?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Page 87, for example, shows a little bit of a falling outside the activity centre plan guidelines to some extent under building height, natural topography. It seems the explanation certainly makes it sound reasonable in this case, but I was just wondering if someone could elaborate on just concerns of what precedent it might set. We've recently had some adjustments to in more residential areas, I suppose, but just in terms of falling into line with our codes and things like that. Basically, it says that the building height is slightly exceeded due to the sloping ground level. So at the lower ground level, the front of the building will be slightly higher. I was just wondering if could get a little bit of commentary about that.
Mr Pope?
Through the Mayor, building height is always a significant topic, especially with these forms of development. In terms of precedents, it is I don't believe it'll set any sort of precedent. All applications are assessed on their merits. Now, in terms of the topography of the land, there's approximately a 5 metre fall from the rear to the front, and it's noted within the assessment that there is going to be an increased amount of fill to the front end just to make more of a flat and level site. And in essence, due to that additional fill, there's going to be a relatively minor increase in overall height. But again, that's only to the front portion of the development and not across the entirety of the site.
Thank you. Councillor Robbins, did you have a further question?
Yes, thank you. And just before I ask my question, just seems to be a typographical error. Condition 17, I think, should actually be part of condition 16, and then 18 should be 17, 19 should be 18, etc. But I'm sure that can be fixed administratively. My next question, I sort of touched on it before, but there seems to be quite a few advice notes, and quite a few of those I think historically have been conditions. So, for example, the one about the tree protection zone, pretty sure that was always listed as a condition, and I don't know if it's just because someone different's prepared the report. But I guess my broad question is, a lot of these advice notes seem to be giving pretty clear direction to the developer. So I'm just wondering, is there scope to shift some of these advice notes into the conditions section? Thank you.
Mr Pope?
Through the Mayor, a lot of the advice notes really relate to the conditions themselves. Now, the conditions, as mentioned previously, a lot of them are to the satisfaction of the city and offer some sort of flexibility, and the advice notes are just simply stipulating what the city's expectations are. There's no right or wrong way of including them within the conditions. However, then you are going to get some quite stringent conditions and offers less flexibility. But certainly if that's something that the council have an issue with, it's certainly something that we can take on notice and review.
Councillor Woodall?
Thank you. Just following on from Councillor Robbins' question, just in relation to the tree protection zone, my understanding relating to it being an advice note was that it may not strictly be enforceable as a planning condition, and so I just wondered, it's not clear to me that there is necessarily any, I'm not sure if there actually are verge trees for this property in question, but is the city looking at a way in which the tree protection zone can be enforced, whether via a local law or a policy?
Mr Free?
Thank you for the question. If a verge permit is required for the construction, which on this sort of build it is quite likely, it'll be a requirement of that verge permit approval, which they need to get from the city, that a tree protection area be incorporated, i.e. that the tree be appropriately fenced.
Councillor Spanbrook?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just on the tree protection zone, I would also like a little bit more information on that because just to give you an example so you understand where I'm coming from, that a childcare centre was built in Bill Creek and there were some trees on that property. However, even though that they were advised not to remove the trees, but they didn't look after them either. There was no watering and the trees end up dying and now they've been removed. So they're now non-existent. So how would these trees be protected there? Thank you, Mr. Free.
Mr. Free?
If the trees are on the verge and they require the verge permit, the trees will be required to be fenced. I'm not aware of a local government being able to arrive at a position where we can require that the development water what in the end is our trees on our verge. And certainly during the construction process, particularly if the trees have been dependent upon water prior to construction starting, it can, in some cases, be difficult for them to survive that period without receiving the water that they're used to.
Follow up, please, Madam Mayor.
Yes, please.
Thank you. I understand what you're saying, but I do believe there are a couple of trees that were just inside on the property off the verge. And I could be wrong, but I feel pretty confident that the developers were advised that these trees were to be protected. And I know that there was some, like a guard around the trees, but it was clear that there was no looking after. So at the development application stage, are there any requirements or any other inclusion of perhaps, criteria to it being approved that they do need to, maintain the trees and water them, no doubt? Thank you.
Mr. Free?
I think we just need to separate if the tree's on the verge or on the private property. In terms of watering the tree, my understanding is if it's on the verge, it is the city's responsibility to water the tree. I think it's going to be difficult to put that onto the builder. And if the question is around the tree being on the private property, we would need a specific condition which required the tree to be protected, and I might need to take further advice on whether we could have whether it would be a reasonable condition to say that the tree needed to be watered if it's on the private property.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Mr. Free. Councillor Edinger?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've just been looking through the Melville Talks responses, and there have been many, many people who are extremely concerned about the parking availability within the Kishorn Road area and the Ogilvie Road area. I'm wondering if the city can require more parking to be provided in the development itself. It appears that the parking is the bare minimum for the number of units being provided, and there appears to be minimal, if to no, visitor parking. I haven't actually forensically looked at the plans, so I'm not really sure about that, but if you could comment on that, that'd be great.
Mr. Free? Mr. Pope?
Through the Mayor, the development does comply with the minimum parking standard in terms of residential parking bays, with no requirement under the activity centre plan for visitor bays. Now that's largely due to the proximity to the transport corridor and the train station there. However, it is noted that there was a shortfall in bicycle parking bays, as you wish. So if the council were to impose a condition requesting for more bays, it would really be only in relation to the shortfall of the parking. Any additional parking bays for residents or visitors, it may be considered onerous.
Just a question about the trees again. If the tree dies, the verge tree, if it dies, would the developer of the property be required to pay for a new mature tree to be planted there?
I think if the city had some policy that stated that potentially, and I'm just not sure what the situation at Melville is, but I feel you would need some sort of policy position.
I think Ms Ahola has an answer. Thank you, if you'd come forward.
Yes, sorry, through the chair. No, we don't ask them to renew the tree if it's died of what we class as natural causes. It is hard to prove whether it's been vandalised or not. If we have proof that it's been vandalised, damaged, etc., then yes, the developer would be required to replace a verge tree.
Are there any further questions? Councillor Barber.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just to follow up, I'm kind of astounded, Mr Pope, that we don't have to provide, or the developer doesn't have to provide visitor parking. And is that across the board in the activity centre plan? Is that a rule, or I'm just really confused? And I didn't understand about the bike parking. You mentioned, could we take away the bike parking and put some visitor parking in there?
Mr Pope.
Through the Mayor, in terms of visitor parking, it's my understanding that under the activity centre plan, the particular location of the development requires no visitor parking bays. Now, that's not to say that any other developments within the general area may not. Is this particular area under the activity centre plan? But that is something that we can take on notice and just confirm that. In terms of the bicycle parking bays, while there is a shortfall, generally those bicycle parking bays may only take up, I think, one bay. So there is a possibility that it can be replaced with an additional bay, but it would be at the lack of 9 bicycle parking bays, and any residents would, should they wish to own a bicycle or cycle to wherever it is they're intending to go, would need to use the very small storage areas that's intended to be used for other residential purposes.
Could you look into that for me, please? I'd really appreciate that.
Are there any further questions? Councillor Robbins.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Noting that the officers chose to have a contractor, a consultant, prepare this report because Councillor Lee is one of the directors of the company who's the landowner, and noting that previous regulations would have meant that this was a mandatory DAP application and wouldn't have been able to come to the council, is there any scope for us as the council to refuse to determine this application and send it to the DAP?
Mr Free.
Through the Mayor.
Mr Pope.
There's no way of refusing the application to make it go through the DAP pathway. Any refusal would basically would be up to the applicant's discretion to seek a review through the State Administrative Tribunal. There is potential to take it on hold and request for amended plans. However, it is noted that the statutory timeframe would still occur, and the applicant will also have the right to take a deemed refusal if it goes over the statutory timeframe.
Thank you. Could I just,
Councillor Robbins?
just to clarify, so if we refuse to consider the development approval, then it's a deemed refusal, is that right?
Mr Pope.
Through the Mayor, should the council make no decision in terms of just simply not determining the application or requesting for a deferral and it goes over the statutory timeframe, the applicant has the right to take that as a deemed refusal. However, if a decision is made to simply refuse the application, it's a similar pathway. They can seek a review through the tribunal.
Are there any further questions? Yes, Ms Newman, Head of Governance.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just advising the council that Councillor Woodall has also declared an impartiality interest in this item. Thank you.
All right, if there's no further questions, thank you very much, Mr Free and Mr Pope. We have the next item that we are bringing forward, which is item 15 for notice of motion, Applecross Ferry Terminal. The motion is proposed by Councillor Ross. I would like to invite Mr Pierre Eccleston forward to make his deputation. Will you please make your way to the microphone to make the deputation? You will have 10 minutes to speak with a further 5 minutes for elected members to ask questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and councillors, for inviting me to speak today. I do apologise from other representatives of the Canning Bridge Ferry Action Group because this meeting clashes with the AGM for the Raffles Waterfront and they're busy voting on a new council members and budgets and levies. In short, we're not opposed to expanding the ferry service. The Applecross Ferry Landing proposal, we believe, is flawed and a waste of public funds. And I just stress that this is not NIMBYism. There is a good case for mitigating the impacts to improve the proposal. There's been little or no consultation or consideration of other options, and that's a quite big issue for us. The proposal will result in 3 jetties within 200 metres in a confined river thoroughfare at Canning Bridge. And I draw your attention to the diagram on the back of the submission. And you can see that there is the proposed landing at Applecross in stage 1. There is a second proposed landing that will be constructed in stage 3. And that's on top of the existing jetty, which is just outside the Raffles. That will result in 3 quite substantial jetties within a space of about 200 metres. We believe that that's quite a significant waste of resources. We think that the ferry landing location and orientation is a worst case scenario and could be better placed. And I'll draw your attention to the diagrams on the charts on the one page, which shows the existing Raffles jetty at the top, the proposed plan for the new Applecross landing, and then down the bottom an artist's impression for the Applecross terminal. We believe that this plan will have the greatest impact on nearby residents. In fact, it's within about 20 metres of some of those residences. It will have significant light pollution, ferry wash and turbulence, community and recreational impacts. And there's been some studies done that would suggest that the ferry wash through the shallow areas could be as much as 0.9 of a metre. So when that goes through the bay, that will have some implications for wildlife and also for erosion along the banks. We believe that it will damage the most sensitive shallow water ecosystems and river wildlife, and it will cause the busiest cycleway bottleneck in Perth to get much worse. And particularly of particular importance to today's meeting, it will exacerbate local bus and traffic congestion and parking problems in the Canning Bridge precinct. A ferry is expected to arrive every 25 minutes from 6 a.m. through to 12:30 a.m. That's approximately more than 40 ferry movements per day. And if you then had buses to meet those ferries along the east and west route of Canning Beach Road, you've probably got 80 potential bus movements. And then those buses would need to go through the streets in the Canning Bridge precinct, probably coming out to Forbes Road. That's a major concern. We also believe that building a multi-storey car park on the Tivoli car park area will severely impact the Raffles residents because it's right outside their entry and exit ramp, and the traffic congestion already on Canning Beach Road makes entry and exit during busy times problematic. We also believe that the ferry landing will put safety at risk for pedestrians, cyclists and other users along the river foreshore. And the proposed design, as you'll see from the artist's impression, is very large. It's pretty unsightly, and it's certainly not in keeping with the amenity of a very attractive river bay. And finally, we believe it's a high-cost proposal, and it's going to be very inefficient in the long run, where you have ferries coming to 2 different landings in the Canning Bridge area. We believe that there are better ways to make the ferry project a success. And we propose that they build only one jetty on the east bank, close to the transport hubs of the bus and train transport and the future projected bus terminal. It doesn't make sense to build 2 large ferry terminals. Alternatively, there is the possibility that the existing jetty, which is pictured in the chart on the photograph at the top, could be expanded to form dual-use jetty, both for ferries and for local watercraft. And the City of Melville could play a very important part in trying to encourage both of those options. And lastly, we believe that moving the landing and reorienting it, the proposed landing and reorienting it closer to deep water, you'll notice from the plan and the artist's impression that the landing starts in very shallow water. In some cases that's about ankle deep at low tide or less, and it moves through that shallow water quite extensively out to reach the deeper water for the ferries. That doesn't seem to make sense to us. We believe that it could be moved so that it's much closer, right to the corner or around the corner, where it's much closer to deep water, and it would require a much smaller, less unsightly, less impactful landing proposal. And we do believe that the design of the proposal, as illustrated in the artist's impression, and the associated infrastructure could be better located, better designed. And if you have a look at the plan, you'll notice that there's a red dotted line area along the foreshore there, together with where the landing is located. It appears as if it's going to remove all of the open space along that foreshore. And that lawn area is extensively used by families, kids coming out to play, people using the water facilities in that area, and also accessing that beach area. So there's a lot that could be done to minimise those consequential impacts in our view. We are concerned that there's a lack of clarity about the detailed plans. It's very difficult to get some information on these. The government does not appear willing to listen or to consider local impacts, local input rather, and we hope that this can change. The City of Melville can play an important part, we believe, in influencing and mitigating the plans and the proposals and their consequential impacts, and encouraging much greater consultation with local residents, particularly those residents that are, or local stakeholders, not just residents, but cycleway users, cyclists, water users, rowers, and those using the area, that the City of Melville could play an important part in helping that. So we urge you to engage the government, as you've indicated that you would, to bring about some much better solutions for this project, which will potentially last for many years into the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Eggleston. Now, are there any questions to our Deputy? Yes, thank you, Councillor Barber.
Thanks, Mr Eggleston. Yeah, it was a great presentation. Have you spoken to the local MLA, Kim Giddens? I see she's on your list of things to do, but have you spoken to her yet?
So the short answer is no. The longer answer is that I personally have been down there 4 times. I have written to her, and I know that other stakeholders have written to her and also visited her office. There's been very little by way of reply. However, I would advise that Kim Giddens has agreed to meet with residents on Thursday to discuss the plans, since we look forward to that meeting. But I would have to say I first wrote in May, and the response has been a little disappointing. Thank you.
Councillor Edinger.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you for your presentation. Has your group considered how people would get to the preferred location, the eastern side? Thank you.
Through the Mayor, thank you for that question. So yes, the buses already go to the bus terminal, trains already go to the train terminal. To get to Elizabeth Quay is 5 minutes on the train. We don't believe that people coming down Canning Highway or Kentale Road who are going into the city wouldn't stay for 2 minutes longer to the train station and then 5 minutes to town, as opposed to walking a few hundred metres, wait for a ferry and then take 15, 20 minutes to go to Matilda Bay, turn around and another 15, 20 minutes to go to Elizabeth Quay. So we think that's problematic. The proposed landing on the east side is actually only a 10-minute easy walk over the bridge because it follows the pedestrian and cycleway. So it's only it's a very easy walk from this proposed landing to the East Bank proposal.
Thank you. Councillor Lee, did you have a question?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was following your presentation. Was there any mention of, with the preferred site, any savings? Have you done any estimation? I presume it will be quite a lot of savings. Thank you.
Mr Eggleston?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you. The answer is no, because we don't yet have full details of the proposal, but you could see that the artist impression, it's a very substantial landing. If they then build a second one in stage 3 on the East Bank, you can see that's going to double the cost quite easily. So we think that just having the one landing on the East Bank will make substantial savings.
Thank you. Councillor Green?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I'm hoping we can, sorry, just quickly, can you see me now? I had a message to say I couldn't, my camera had been turned off, but it appears to be okay from here.
Yes, we can see you
okay.
now. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I just had a fairly basic question, I guess, just through the ferry action group. Is there a desire to have a ferry at all, or in the you know, the near vicinity, or would you sort of be inclined to not one? Have you observed that there is a desire in the area for a ferry?
Mr Eggleston?
Through you, Madam Mayor. So the answer to that is we've not had people reaching out to us saying, yes, we desire a ferry. There may be people who think it's a good idea. I'm old enough to know that there were 2 previous occasions where there were trial runs to put a ferry, where they were in the area where they were using existing facilities, both at Canning Bridge and at Mount Henry Bridge and at Matilda Bay. And those those trial runs failed due to lack of passengers. And basically it was lack of access, lack of proximity to intermodal transport facilities, and really it's much quicker to use other routes to get into town than use a ferry route. So we don't anticipate that the demand will be high.
Thank you, Mr Eggleston. Councillor Fitzgerald?
Right.
I believe Councillor Green had another question. I think I've heard
Councillor Green, did you have another question?
Just a real, if I could just have one quick follow-up, that'd be good. I was just also wondering whether any consideration had been given to or any discussion about potentially using Applecross Jetty as an alternative that was once used for a ferry at one time as well.
I'm not... well, Mr Eggleston, did you want to have a go at answering that?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. And through you, We've not had any discussions with the government on that front, but we do believe it makes eminent sense. There are 3 quite significant jetties which could be adapted for use. Obviously the one at the Raffles, second one at Applecross, in the Applecross area, thirdly, in fact 4, thirdly at Point Walter, and fourthly at Jojo's at Matilda Bay. Excuse me, the jetty at Jojo's at Matilda Bay. All of those jetties could be adapted quite cheaply to make a more effective ferry system on the Swan if the government so chose. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Eggleston. Councillor Fitzgerald.
Thank you for your presentation. I'm just there was the line in there that I was very confused by, and that was that you had analysis that the potential wash impact was up to 90 centimetres, I think you said. I mean, that's pretty extraordinary given that the MV Trisha, which is currently in the Perth ferry fleet, operates at 16 knots and wouldn't come close to cracking a tiny fraction of that wash. I mean, unless, given that we know high-speed catamarans and low-wash technology is what is currently operated and what is likely to be operated, I'm struggling to understand how the claim that environmental impacts should be assessed based on the idea that we'll be looking at nearly a metre-high wash.
Mr Eggleston.
Through you, Madam Mayor. The Northern Action Group, which has done a lot of work on the Matilda Bay proposal, has taken the ferry criteria as published for the tender and put it to the Maritime Authority in Tasmania to assess, and they have come back with some advice of the wash at different speeds. And the important point is that the wash in shallow areas is higher because that exacerbates as the wave energy goes through, the wave height gets higher. And they've identified that the ferry, which will have a top speed of 25 knots, which is quite significant, will be up to 90 centimetres in the shallow areas.
Yeah, very keen to see that analysis if you could pass it on. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Spanbrook.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Mr Eggleston. During your deputation, I think you said there was something like, was it 40 boardings? Is that correct? From the first one, 6:25, and the last one is 12:30 a.m. I think you said, was that correct? And then I'll ask my question.
Mr Eggleston.
Through you, Madam Mayor. So the answer is yes, it is. The ferries are proposed to go from 6 a.m. through to 12:30 a.m. and to come every 25 minutes. So that would imply, if you do the calculations, that would imply more than 40, probably around 44 ferry turnarounds at the landing.
Councillor Spanbrook.
Oh, thank you. In saying that, I believe you're concerned about the environmental impact it'll have. Also, the demand may not be there. So if they started at 40 boardings a day, then if the demand wasn't there, well, then they would no doubt drop back. Have you taken that into account? And also, with the environmental impact, could that not be offset by perhaps revegetation elsewhere, or if there is any potential damage? Have you taken that into account as well? Thank you.
Mr Eggleston.
Thank you for the question, through you, Madam Mayor. So we don't have a lot of information on the detail of the proposal and how they propose to manage the environmental impacts. We understand that it will go to the EPA soon and that there will be a 7-day comment period for that EPA assessment. But we are concerned it's a very sheltered bay. It's a very attractive bay in that area. It's a high-use bay in terms of recreational users. And we are concerned about the impacts on wildlife and on the foreshore. That area is frequented by dolphins that are feeding and training their calves. There are black swans and cygnets that feed and come into that bay. There are pelicans that feed. There's numerous bird life, and we are quite concerned about the environmental impacts. Thank you.
Councillor Robbins?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Before I ask a question of Mr Eggleston, could I just check with you, was this presentation with regards to 15.4, the notice of motion Applecross Ferry Terminal?
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr Eggleston, for your presentation. The motion that the council will be considering next week is requesting a report on buses and parking in Applecross, and is largely based on the assumption that there will be a ferry terminal at Applecross. So my questions for you are, firstly, what are you asking of the council? Is it in relation to the motion that is before us, or is it just a general, are you just asking us to, I guess, adopt your position that Applecross isn't the correct place for this ferry terminal? And then secondly, if you do have any comments on the motion that is before us. Thank you.
Mr Eggleston?
Thank you for the question, and through you, Madam Mayor. So there are two parts. We believe that the City of Melville can play a very important role in helping to mitigate the consequential impacts of this terminal. Hopefully it could be located on the east bank, which would remove a lot of the consequential impacts, including traffic and parking and bus management through there. So we would very much like the council not only to be liaising with the state government on bus and vehicle traffic and so on, but looking at the broader consequential impacts, which may also relate to vehicle and bus and parking as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any further questions? Councillor Barber?
I've got a question, Madam Mayor. I'm not sure whether city officers or Mr Eggleston will know. But it's about the 2 jetties proposed by the state government, and we did have a presentation by state government people who came. I don't know whether we've got much say over what happens. But do you know why they've proposed 2 jetties, why they've proposed one and then the east one, and what the time differential is? And I'm just, as I said, I'm not sure whether you know, or that's a city officer question. So the question was, why have they proposed 2 jetties at place 1 and then place 2?
Mr Eggleston, are you able to answer?
I thank you for the question, and through you, Madam Mayor. A partial possible answer. The answer is I don't know the timeframes of stage 1, 2 and 3. The advice, the sort of high level advice that we've received was that the planning around the Canning Bridge replacement and the bus and future bus terminal on the East Bank has not proceeded, and therefore it would be difficult to place a jetty in that area. I don't buy that argument. I think that with a little bit of forethought, they could easily place the landing there and then integrate it into the plan for that area. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Eggleston. We have reached the end of our question time.
Pardon?
Councillor Lim?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you for raising these points. At some point, the city will be, providing their own assessment and formal submission to the state government. But I'm also trying to work out, because one of your requests is real consultation about the plan. Like, is that something that you find that as the ferry group, like you don't have the resources to conduct the consultation? Is that sort of, I guess it's a question to the officer as well, like, is there any way we can provide, funding to the group in some way to do this consultation? Because, obviously we have some sort of conflict of interest, when we have to provide the report to the state government. So yeah, I'm just wondering, are you tied on resource in some way to perform proper consultation? Thank you.
Mr Eggleston?
Thank you for the question, and through you, Madam Mayor. You're right, we are a very limited group. It's all volunteers. We don't have any funding resources whatsoever, but we are highly concerned. We do believe that there are opportunities to find much better solutions, and we're happy to contribute towards that. So we'd welcome any resources, of course. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Eggleston. That brings us to the end of our question time to Mr Eggleston. Are there any burning questions that need to be asked? Okay, thank you very much, Mr Eggleston. We have the officers available to answer questions now. So Councillor Lim, if you wish to direct that question that you had to the officers now, Mr Free will provide some answers. Pardon? Oh yes, thank you. Councillor Wheatland, welcome to the meeting. Could you just confirm your presence?
Yes, sorry, thank you. Yes.
Councillor Lim?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I just summarised my previous question. Is there any way the council can help the ferry group in their consultation process? Thank you. Without being I guess, biased. Thank you.
Okay, Ms Bowman, CEO.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you, we'll just need to take that question on notice and consider it. The city does have a community grants program, but we'll just need to get back to you on that with an answer. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Wheatland.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor, and apologies for being late. Look, I came in at the tail end of this, but I do have a question around some process, and in particular, before we go and decide to grant funding to the action group, is there engagement by the action group or with the community, with the local member, and also I would assume there would be broad consultation and engagement with the local government around this as well. Maybe to the CEO, Madam Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Mr Free can give some, I think, provide an answer for that one. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Just in relation to the development application, the development application will be determined by the West Australian Planning Commission. The Department for Planning, Lands and Heritage will undertake the community consultation, so there'll be opportunity for the community to put in a submission to the department, which will then be presented to the West Australian Planning Commission for consideration. As part of that process, the application will be referred to the City of Melville, and our plan is to present a report to council for council to consider its response to the development application.
Can you give us an idea around the time frame?
Thank you for the question. Not tonight, but after we've met with the Department of the Public Transport Authority, I think it's next week. I may have some indication then.
Thank you, Mr Free. Councillor Woodall.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I may have missed, I think, the briefing from the Department of Transport, but will there be a detailed, comprehensive community consultation process that occurs prior to any decision being made, or has consultation already occurred and the design's simply being presented as taking that into account?
Mr Free, would you be able to answer that?
Mayor, I can't answer what community engagements occurred prior to now. I was referring to that there will be a formal community consultation process with the development application, but that'll be based on a design that's been submitted for approval.
Councillor Woodall.
Thank you. Just a follow-up, just in relation to the issues raised around parking and also public transport. Given the proposed location, it would seem to me that effectively Canning Beach Road has to be utilised for access, which of course is a local road. So, I mean, realistically, is there a scenario in which this could occur without the involvement of the city, given there's a city local road controlling access to and from the terminal?
Mr Free?
Mayor, if I understand the question correctly, I believe the Public Transport Authority could change the bus route and put a bus route down the local street. And that's when we meet with them next week, that's going to be one of the questions we've got for them. Are they giving any consideration to making any modifications to the bus routes? How do they believe in? I'm assuming they've done some research here and how many people they expect to use it, the ferry service. How do they expect people to actually to get to the ferry terminal? Are they expecting them to catch a bus? Are they expecting them to walk? Are they expecting them to drive? Which I think we need to have some sort of understanding of that information that they're basing their decisions on, and then that'll inform the city on how we respond.
Are there any further questions? All right, thank you very much. We're now moving on to our next item. The next item is from the Policy and Legislation Committee, held on Monday the 21st of July, the new council policy, State Administrative Tribunal. I remind Council that a written submission has been received in relation to this item and was circulated by the governance team earlier today. A copy will also be available in the notes of the meeting. So prior to this discussion on the item, Mr. Free, Director of Planning, will provide a short officer presentation. Thank you, Mr. Free.
Thank you, Matt. Does someone else controls the slides for me? Yep. So we can move to the next slide, and the next one. That covers my entire presentation. Thank you. So the policy objectives here are around the procedures and guidelines for representation at SAT and measures in place to avoid conflicts of interest. So the policy is very procedural. There's a significant section on the representation at SAT, firstly involving officers, but also perhaps particularly importantly involving elected members. If council has made a decision on a matter which ends up in the SAT, often the SAT likes to have some representation from the council particularly at the mediation stage. This SAT seems to do this to try and ensure that some people from the body that has made the decision is at the mediation, and they seem to believe that will help in resolving the matter at mediation. Obviously, from mediation, the matters will always come back to council for an actual decision. And then thirdly, costs, which this was discussed at the committee stage. And I just wanted to make it clear it's very unlikely that the SAT will award costs to one party or the other, particularly if both parties act reasonably. So there is the potential that costs could be awarded against the city, and an example of when that might occur, and this is quite an extreme case, if the city, for example, refused a proposal based on noise, but then we went to a full hearing of the SAT and we didn't have a noise expert as a witness to support our case, but the other party did, that would be a case where I think that the city would be vulnerable to having costs awarded against us. And if you're faced with a situation like that, I would expect that the legal representative we've engaged or our advocate would be coming back to council and saying, look, you really need to consider this. We haven't been able to find someone to support our position on the noise, for example, and a cost may be awarded against us. An extreme case on the other side will be if someone puts in an application, it's refused, goes to SAT, goes through the entire process, and SAT continues to support the refusal. And then straight after that SAT refusal, the applicant puts in a very similar application which goes through the entire process and is refused. So they've done it twice now. And if they do it the third time, I think it'd be well within our rights as a city to apply to the SAT for costs. So I think both of those examples are really quite extreme. So the awarding of cost is very unlikely, but from the committee meeting, we have added an additional sentence into the policy under the section referring to costs. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm happy to take any questions if there are any.
Are there any questions for Mr Free? Councillor Edinger?
It's sort of not for Mr Free, but because this policy has been to the policy committee, it would be useful in the engagement section of the report to possibly indicate that so that people know that it's been to the policy committee. Or is it somewhere else in the report and I've missed it? Thank you.
Ms Newman, Governance?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you. It's actually in the section of the agenda that relates to items from committees. So it's very specific that that's where it's come from.
Councillor Fitzgerald?
Thank you. Just one question, and it's about, there's a section in the policy that suggests that where an elected member attends the SAT, they should be an elected member who voted for the proposal. Given that all elected members, once a proposal is successfully voted for, are required to support the council decision, and given the past practice, particularly when elected members have made representations to JDAP and other bodies, has been that a decision of council would nominate particular EMs to go down and do that. Is it necessary to specify an elected member who voted for the proposal? I just wonder, is there the possibility that if there are votes to amend that occasionally come before the council and there might be a long and arduous set of discussions about amendments, would we be better off to just avoid those challenges by identifying either that the council nominates an elected member or just allow any elected member to do so?
Mr Free?
Thank you. Any or all of those are possible. It's written in here that the mover and seconder is where you start off. Certainly open to council to make a decision that someone else attends. Just at a practical level as well, it may be that the mover and the seconder, for example, are just not available on the day, so we would seek to find someone else. So I think the policy is trying to give us guidance on sort of what would be the first step that we would adopt, but I don't see it as being hard and fast.
Councillor Ross?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you, I read that that particular part that was just raised as being a councillor who voted in support of the council's position being what's being defended at the hearing. But my question actually was, often the SAT will send a matter back for reconsideration. What is the, and I couldn't find anything in there that stipulates who would reconsider that decision, because if the same officers who made the decision, for example, are going to be doing the reconsideration, where's the separation or independence of the decision makers?
Mr Free?
Sorry, just to be clear, is this a decision made by officers at officer level or a decision made by council?
Councillor Ross?
This would be a decision generally where it's made by the officers, and yes.
Mr Free?
Yes, I'd expect in that case a decision's been made at officer level. Officers attend a mediation session, and then that would come back, and it would be a different officer who would make the decision after mediation. So Officer B would make the decision after mediation, and Officer A would have made the decision before mediation. So the following mediation, it is a different officer making the decision.
Yeah, just a follow-up question, please.
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Would Officer C be senior to the previous officer or junior?
Mr. Free?
Normally, I'd expect it to be a more senior officer making the decision after mediation.
Sorry,
Councillor Ross?
just to follow up that. And the city has the capacity to do that?
Mr. Free?
Certainly in the area that I'm responsible for, the decisions made prior to mediation are made at the manager level or below. I generally wouldn't be involved in those. So if the manager had made the decision prior to mediation, I'd expect that after mediation, the decision would be coming to me.
Are there any? Councillor Barber?
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I'm just got a question about public questions and governance submitted to us a written submission from residents. And I do notice in the agenda, and it kind of irks me, is that the questions that get asked at the ABF or submitted don't get answered till the following OMC, if you know what I mean. So in our agenda now we've got questions from Mr. Jenke.
Councillor, I'm not sure that's the item we've got before us. Is that anything to do with the item before us?
Well, I think we did get a written submission in OMC public questions, and I'm thinking it would be nice if we could have these questions answered by the upcoming OMC, not the following OMC. Is that what's going to happen?
Perhaps, can you answer that now? Perhaps have a chat with Councillor Barber afterwards. Yeah, okay. Ms Newman, Head of Governance.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So the process that we use is detailed in our meeting procedures. So we do have a prescribed process that we follow under that local law, but I'm happy to go through that with you outside of this meeting if you'd like.
Okay, are there any further questions pertaining to this item? Councillor Edinger.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have a question about the formatting of the policy. I'm wondering if the paragraphs could be, if the headings could be numbered and then the paragraphs within the headings could be numbered, so if people are having to refer to the policy, they can refer to the numbered paragraph. Thank you.
Okay, Ms Newman, Head of Governance.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We will look at that outside of this meeting. We are developing a new policy framework and all policies eventually will be in a consistent format. Thank you.
Are there any further questions pertaining to this item? All right, thank you very much, Mr Free. Moving on to item C25301, Welga Annual General Meeting, nomination of City of Melville voting delegates. Ms Newman, Head of Governance, is available to take questions. Are there any questions? If there are no questions, we're moving on to item C25302, investment statements for June.
Madam Mayor, sorry to interrupt.
Yes.
I just had a thought. Who are our voting delegates? Are we allowed to ask that?
Well, do you mean last year's voting delegates?
No,
because this year
year's.
we haven't yet voted on it. We're voting
so
on
we're going
it
to do
at the
that next
council
week,
meeting.
do we?
Yes.
Okay, thank
yes.
you.
So if you want to nominate, put your
I
nomination.
just wasn't sure of the process.
Yeah.
Thanks very much.
Thank you. All right, moving on to C25302, investment statements for June. Ms Ferreira, Chief Financial Officer, is available to take questions. Any questions? Item C25303, schedule of accounts paid for June. Are there any questions? Oh, Councillor Lim.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So this is sort of like an observation. So I was just looking through the attachment 2, page 156. So there was a sort of like a draft grant purchase for a referee wallboard. I was just wondering why that was purchased through like a purchase card instead of like a purchase order, given the recent findings. Thank you.
Ms Ferreira.
Thank you for your question. Through the chair, we will have to take that on notice.
Thank you. All right, moving on to the next one, item C 25-304, statements of financial activity for June. Any questions? Item number CD 2549, Morris Buzzacott Reserve Change Rooms and Storeroom Refurbishment CSRFF application. Prior to discussion on this item, Ms Pickering, Director of Community Development, will provide a short officer presentation. Thank you, Ms Pickering.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and good evening, elected members. Okay, just waiting for the, there we go. Okay, so just a little bit of background about Morris Buzzacott Reserve Change Room and Storeroom. Morris Buzzacott Reserve is a 15+ hectare district level open space in Cardinia. It's the city's second largest reserve of its kind. This particular project was deferred in 2023 due to funding constraints at the time. The current cost estimate is $1.8 million, and within the adopted long-term financial plan, we have an allocation of $1.25 million. So the city is therefore proposing to apply for a CSRFF grant for the balance, which is approximately $600,000. And the CSRFF submission will also be supported by a written needs analysis, feasibility study and business case, which will be done in-house. In terms of the project, the issues and deficiencies with the current building is that the change rooms are really outdated. They need new flooring, benches, lighting, ceilings, signage and fittings. The showers are still in the sort of old-fashioned open layout, and so they're unsuitable for female users. The universally accessible toilet, or UAT, is currently non-compliant and requires upgrades, including a changing table, handrails and wider doorway. The doorways are inaccessible throughout, and several need widening to support disability access. And finally, the storage is insufficient for the current users' needs. Thank you. So the proposed refurbishment sits within the existing building footprint, and it includes the refurbishment of the 2 change rooms in the main club room, the redistribution of the internal toilets to improve functionality and flow, particularly for the tennis users. The refurbishment of the storage areas to enable better access of the equipment in and out of the building. The installation of new electric hot water heat pumps, the refurbishment of the other 2 change rooms that adjoin the Cardinia Hall, and then creating one universal access toilet from the existing separate male and female toilets, and creating some additional storage out of the leftover footprint from that work. And then finally improving lighting and disability access in relation to door widths, thresholds and handrails where required throughout the building. In terms of engagement, the city has engaged with all of the key stakeholders through the concept and schematic design, and all clubs are supportive of the current design and feel that it is much needed. That said, the Cardinia Red Sox Ball Club have requested an outward-facing kitchen kiosk, which is currently not in scope for the current project, and the reason for that is that the existing kitchen was refurbished in 2020, and establishing a separate kiosk where that kiosk could be is quite a long way from the existing kitchen. And so that would either duplicate facilities or we would need to completely reconfigure the club room space to enable a combined kiosk and kitchen. And that would lead to increased time and cost. And these scope of works are really required as a high priority. As I said before, the project was deferred from 2023. So while the officers do believe that there is value in the future of an outward-facing kitchen kiosk, the recommendation is not to consider this through this project. However, we are working at the moment on the Morris Buzzercott Reserve Site Development Plan and the RS Review, where we can consider this and prioritise it with the other community infrastructure projects that come through those projects, those reviews. So,
have you finished?
I'm just waiting for the last
Oh,
slide
the
to
last
come up.
slide.
Thank you. So the officer's recommendation is on the screen. I won't read it out word for word, but just requesting councillors' endorsement to apply to the CSRFF, noting that $50,000 has been allocated to complete the detailed design in the current annual budget, and also to consider that total allocation of $1.8 million, inclusive of that 600,000 figure roundabouts from the CSRFF for 26-27 annual budget. Thank you.
Right, thank you very much, Ms Pickering. Do we have any questions from elected members? Councillor Robbins?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a couple of questions, if I can. Thanks for your presentation, Ms Pickering. Do you by any chance have the plans available to put up on the screen or not at this meeting? Okay, no, that's okay. I just am sort of struggling to get my head around the plans and how they relate to the two buildings on site. I was wondering is it at all possible to meet you or another officer down there just to walk through the two buildings and get a better understanding of what's proposed and where the UAT is and in regards to the hall and the current building?
Ms Pickering?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you for your questions, Councillor Robbins. Yeah, we'll be delighted to do that. Thank you.
Fantastic, thank you. And just one more if I can. I note that previously when Council has considered these CSRFF applications, the officer's recommendation has included the project ranking and the project rating. And I know obviously the project ranking for this one's irrelevant because we've only got one, we're only making one submission, but is it worth including the project rating, which I note is A, in the officer recommendation that the council will support? Thank you. Well, hopefully support. Thank you.
Ms Pickering?
Thank you. Thank you again for your question. That's certainly something that we can include. I wasn't aware of the previous practice, but if that's been the previous practice, then that makes sense to do that. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Spanbrook?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Ms Pickering, with the Morris Buzzercott Reserve Site Development Plan, I think you said, how far away is that, please? And then I'll ask you a couple other questions, if I may. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Ms Pickering?
Thank you for your question, Councillor Spanbrook, and through you, Madam Mayor. I haven't got an up-to-date timeline on that. I'm sorry, that's really remiss of me to have not checked that before I came tonight, but I will certainly get that information out to the elected members as soon as I can. Thank you.
Right, Councillor Spanbrook?
Yep, thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, in saying that, and I understand how far you've come at the moment, but considering that costs, are increasing, every other day, then with the lack of ref or an umpire's room, as was discussed at the EMIS last week, that I think, it would certainly be a worthwhile addition when you consider other sporting change rooms and club rooms, how they do have one as well. And Troy Park's an example, and you know, the Leeming Sports Association is another one, and even with regard to Bull Creek Leeming Footy Club. So as the fact that there's 3 sporting groups that actually utilise this, and the other thing that you know, I don't know the groups at all, but you know, an outward facing kitchen, and I did take note of what you just said earlier, but for perhaps an increase in the CSRFF grant, or perhaps even, as I said last week, a self-supporting loan, which I do recall Mr. Burton advising that the groups were not offered this. So perhaps that could be considered as well. And is there something in that we could look at this further, you know, so we could actually, as I've always said, you know, build for the future, not just build for now? Thank you.
Ms Pickering.
Thank you, Councillor Spanbrook, for your questions. There's certainly, well, the engagement that we've had with the current clubs has indicated that they don't feel they need a requirement for a separate umpires room, that the way that the room will work in the future is adequate to the requirements of the clubs who are based there at the moment. It's really only the football club that has that requirement, and their feedback to us is they're very comfortable with the what's been put in front of them. In terms of the kitchen and the proposal, I mean, another option, you know, and it's certainly council's prerogative, would be to put this project on hold again, review the outcomes of the site development plan, and then consider everything holistically. That site development plan is quite broad, though, so it picks up the requirements of hockey, some further requirements of tennis, also the bowling club, netball, and the community building. So it's quite a large piece of work, and I feel that this particular upgrade is really required fairly urgently for the clubs, and that for the sake of the outward-facing kiosk, I think if the clubs were given that option, and certainly we could investigate that further, I think their preference would be to have the upgrade now, missing out on the kiosk, than waiting potentially many, many years for this work to be done. But I'm happy to investigate that more with the clubs between now and next week.
Thank you, Ms Pickering. Councillor Whitland.
Yeah, thank you. And look, thank you for your presentation. Look, excellent questions by Councillor Spanbrook, I've got to say. I think in this modern day, I don't understand why we aren't engaging with AFL and the WAFL in particular about provisions for female umpiring change rooms. And I apologise, I missed the briefing on this one, but the AFL is actively working to grow female participation, not only across the grassroots sport, but also in umpiring. And it's a real barrier, not only for men and young boys, but for women and young girls to pursue a pathway in umpiring when there are no access to change rooms. So I just wonder why we haven't engaged with, or if we have engaged with those clubs. Maybe Marielle, Ms Pickering, I need to catch up with you when I get back, or talk to you before the council meeting next week.
Ms Pickering.
Thank you. Thank you for your question, Councillor Wheatland. Yeah, it's hard to describe without the layout in front of us, but there is an existing room that is used for the change rooms, and it's a gender-neutral change room, and that's what they use for match day. And so that has been provided, but it's not a dedicated room that's just always throughout, you know, 24/7 for that purpose. So it's a room that when it's not used by the umpire, it's been used for something else, which is for other use within that change room by the clubs. But I can get you some additional detail. In fact, if you'd like to meet us out on site with Councillor Robbins, you're most welcome.
I don't think that's possible. And one more question, if I may, Madam Mayor.
Yes, Deputy Mayor Wheatland.
Thank you. And look, I have a really strong knowledge of this from being chair of the RDC Community Football for the past 4 years. And even a shared gender neutral change room is not sufficient. I wonder if there's any way we can repurpose a room into a specific change room for female umpires and officials at some stage. I'll just leave that with you and I'll flick you an email.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any, Councillor Edinger?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Is the development predicated on getting the CRF grant, and what happens if we unfortunately are not selected for the grant? Thank you.
Ms Pickering?
Thank you for your question, Councillor Edinger. At this stage, to proceed in the next financial year, 26-27, then yes, it would require the grant to come through. If we were unsuccessful, we would be applying through the following financial year's annual budget process for the full amount.
Yes, Councillor Edinger.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Are the clubs aware of this process so that they, to manage their expectations? Thank you.
Ms Pickering?
Thank you again for your question, Councillor Edinger. Yes, the clubs are aware of the CSRFF process. Thank you.
Are there any further questions? Councillor Robbins?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I note that, Mary, you said, sorry, Ms Pickering, that you said we could meet on site. But just a question about the UAT. Is that easily accessible by the tennis club? And I guess my question is about the location of where that toilet is with regards to the tennis courts. Thank you.
Ms Pickering?
Thank you again for your question, Councillor Robbins. The UAT, the current toilets that are there at the moment are not very accessible. However, by combining them and changing their configuration, they will become a lot more accessible to the public who are using the courts. And then within the change room, within the building, we're also changing the flow of the toilets that are also located inside so that the tennis club has greater accessibility to those toilets as well. Thanks.
Councillor Hong?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you for your presentation. Is this new design flexible or adaptable enough to handle potential future changes in the club, such as increasing number of members and all that? Thank you.
Ms Pickering?
Thank you. Again, thank you, Councillor Hong. The officers do believe that they've captured all of the club's future outlook for the growth of their clubs and their sport, and that this design will meet those requirements, and the clubs themselves have given us that feedback. I guess it is certainly based on the current clubs that use that area, and we are trying to keep the design of these buildings as multi-purpose as possible, so that, if, for instance, the softball club was to move out and we were to get a different type of sport, that they would be able to be used for that, just in terms of the design principles. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any further questions? If there's no further questions, I have declared an interest in the next item. I will leave the room. Councillor Barber, can I please ask you to assume the chair? And wasn't this?
The next item is E2574, Kearns Crescent Renewal. Mr Maloney, Acting Director of Environment and Infrastructure, is available to take questions on this item and the following two items. Are there any questions for Mr Maloney? Councillor Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Acting Mayor, and through you. The parking situation down at Kearns Crescent has been an ongoing challenge for more than a decade, and attempts to negotiate with owners have resulted in the situation we have before us now, which is that we're abandoning attempts to do the upgrade at all. Is there any mechanism available to us to compel the, I guess, reorientation of parking bays in a way that would be more advantageous, that would assist people trying to use the area? Or is the fact that these are privately owned parking bays, does that mean that there is just no capacity for us to enforce a direction to sort of change that area to a sort of workable situation?
Mr Maloney.
Through the chair, thank you, councillor. I can take the question on notice. It is private property. I have to seek further advice on that one, but it's my understanding no. But I'll get some information and I'll get back to you.
Are there any further questions relating to this item? Councillor Edinger.
Thank you, Councillor Barber. Can the city please advise that the changes to the parking that are proposed are mainly to the on-street parking, which is in the city realm? Thank you.
Mr Maloney.
Thank you, through the chair. Thank you, Janine. Yes, councillor.
Are there any further questions? Councillor Lim.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So just wondering with the decision, so would there be any, I guess, work done on Wilcox Street car park, given that we're not going ahead with the Kearns Crescent main area? Thank you.
Mr Maloney.
Through the chair, thank you, councillor Lim. I'll have to take that on notice as well. Oh, sorry.
The CEO would like to make a comment.
Thank you, Acting Mayor, and thank you for your question. We would not be proceeding with the Wilcox Street car parking. That would not be part of a renewal of the road surfaces, etc. As officer recommendation is only including renewal and refurbishment when it reaches the end of its useful life for the streetscapes and pavement areas. We can obviously look at the Wilcox Street site as a separate project, and that would be something that would be considered as part of the strategic land asset management plan as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, CEO. Councillor Spanbrook, you have a question?
Thank you, Madam Acting Mayor. Is that what you referred to there, Councillor Barber?
Just Madam Chair, I think it's fine.
Madam Chair, thank you. Yes, my question is, as there's been a lot of work in the Kearns Crescent, and I recall councillors a few years ago doing a walkthrough, which took probably, I don't know, half a day or maybe not that long, but it was quite, time consuming. And so the work what has been done is not in vain. I'm assuming this question is to Mr. Free, Director Free, that can the city potentially engage with a professional negotiator to perhaps meet with all, the private owners to see if they can actually come to some similar agreement on a better outcome. And even though I know what's being proposed right now in the officer recommendation, but perhaps a little bit, down the track a little bit. Is that a possibility? Thank you.
Who'd like to answer that, Mr. Free or Mr. Maloney? Oh, lovely. So we've got Ms. Ahola who's going to answer.
Thank you for your question. Are you talking about the private car parking or the Kearns Crescent street parking? Just for clarification.
The actual of the streetscape, even though right now just carrying out, the just the bare, what's it say, the basic renewal of assets being just the road surfacing. So with the Kearns Crescent streetscape, and even you could incorporate the private car park area as well, as we all know that it's very, very messy.
Ms Ahola?
So we could employ a negotiator for the public parking on the streetscape, but it's actually our land. So in some respects, we don't really need to. We just need to make a decision and engage, consult, whatever other word you'd like to use. If you're talking about the private car parking, then that is a different issue. Then that would be something whether the council wanted to take a front step in negotiating with all those residents, owners, to get that private parking re-established.
A follow-up, please, Acting Chair.
Yes, absolutely.
I understand that the Kearns Crescent does belong to the ratepayers, Ms Ahola, but what I'm saying is that if there can be some negotiation, some really good negotiator discussions with all the private owners, and even though yes it is the city's land, but right now it's not being recommended to go ahead with it because that the actual owners don't wish to have it. They're not in support of it. But surely there can be something, a better outcome than this. That's what I'm actually proposing, with a professional negotiator to bring them all together and to get them speaking to each other and trying to agree to something. Thank you.
Ms Ahola, would you like to answer that?
It is always an option if the council will require it. Yep.
Thank you. Councillor Woodall, you had a question.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. Just in relation to the parking situation, I recall a number of years ago there were discussions and I think agreement on trying to encourage more patrons and customers to the area, and the city made changes to the parking arrangements at the time, increasing the period of free parking to 3 hours. And I think we had all understood that the businesses would do something similar, and nothing has occurred. And the parking in the business or the private parking areas clearly hasn't been renewed or replaced by the landlords or by the owners of the properties. So I'm just wondering, is the city intending to review the parking arrangements so that there's some consistency between the city bays and the private bays? Because I believe there are still people who park in the private car park thinking that it's 3 hours free, but not realising that there's a demarcation between the two. So is that something that is being explored at the moment?
Ms Ahola, would you like to answer that?
Thank you for your question. We are not exploring that because it is a council direction. If council would like us to explore it and change the parking on the streetscape to match the internal parking, we can do that if we're requested to do so.
And the CEO would like to add something.
Thank you. I just wanted to also say that the city is going to be looking at a parking harmonisation plan. So the community safety area will be looking at where the council currently has free parking across the city, how long the free parking is actually in place for, because it does vary across the district, and then look at some options for council to consider in the future. So that's for city-controlled parking areas. There has been an offer made to assist the Kearns Crescent owners with considering their parking arrangements to try and support some improvements in that space. And I believe that's on hold until after the council makes the decision about the Kearns Crescent streetscape upgrade, just so that it stays as a separate issue. Thanks.
Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. From all this discussion, it goes back to square one. Initially, the streetscape was done to facilitate safe crossing, and there's no footpath between Bad Apple and the grill hamburger place. So if the final decision were to come resurfacing the road, would the footpath be built for? Initially, it started the whole thing from the footpath. So now we're back to square one. So would we give them the footpath after all this if we are just resurfacing the road? Thank you.
Ms. Ahola.
Thank you for the question. The simple answer is no, we will not be building a footpath on the outer ring.
And the CEO would like to add to that comment.
Thank you. I believe Councillor Lee's talking about the footpath in front of the Bad Apples venue. Is that correct? And they had put in a request for an alfresco area to be enclosed, and we'll take that on notice. Thank you.
And if I could just follow up with a question, Ms. Ahola. You said that the Wilcox car park will not go ahead. So what are you thinking of doing with that piece of land in the near future?
Thank you. That will go, as the CEO has indicated, to the strategic property group, and that will be determined by them.
Thanks very much. Are there any other questions on this item? If not, we'll move on. Thank you. And we need to get the Mayor back in.
Okay, moving on to the next item. E2576 Deferral Policy Review CP029 Tree Policy. Are there any questions for Mr Maloney? Councillor Spanbrook.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. With the officer recommendation there, Mr Maloney, is there a preference why the officers would like the policy to go back to the Policy and Legislation Committee, other than perhaps having an alternate motion or an alternative motion be proposed? Thank you.
Mr Maloney.
Thank you, through the chair. Can I just confirm with governance that I can discuss this matter regarding the Local Government Act?
Ms Newman, Head of Governance.
Thank you for the question, Councillor Spanbrook. I just wanted to confirm you're asking why the officers are referring it back to the Policy and Legislation Committee?
Yes, and they're preferring a deferral motion, a deferral to this tree policy, so in early 2026, and to refer it back to the Policy and Legislation Committee, other than perhaps allowing an alternative motion to be brought to Council.
Ms Newman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So we had a motion from Council earlier in the year to come back to the Council in August 2025, which is what this report was. The policy was discussed at 2 Policy and Legislation Committee meetings, and we did have an amended policy to come back to Council. We've since had some further information that we believe the Policy and Legislation Committee needs to consider, and we need to consider the options in relation to that, and it is the preference that the item go back to the Policy and Legislation Committee so that that information can be considered and options put forward, so that when we do come back to Council, we have a viable policy that we can implement. Thank you.
Just to follow up there, please, Madam Mayor.
Yeah, Councillor Spanbrook.
Thank you. Is this to save perhaps, maybe time, or there may be some, conflict of interest perhaps within the room of what should and shouldn't be said? Is that something along those lines, or is it just...
Councillor
I'll
Spanbrook,
leave it
I
there.
think this is probably a conversation you can have with Head of Governance after the meeting. We've got another week prior to making a decision, and it might be good for you to get clarity on these issues from Head of Governance, Ms Newman, after the meeting.
Can I then please ask if the CEO has any feedback on this, please?
Ms Bowman, CEO.
Thank you. I believe the Head of Governance has already clarified that the officer's recommendation is to refer the policy back to the Policy and Legislation Committee so that some information the city has received can be considered by the Policy Committee, and then enable them to make further amendments to the current policy that the committee has recommended to Council in the minutes. Thank you.
Councillor Fitzgerald.
Thank you. The advice note we've got isn't entirely clear on the nature of the sort of new information that's to be considered. At a guess, I would venture it's probably to do with the recent decision in Zorsey and Town of Cambridge that's come from the SAT. But I just wonder if we could get some clarity on the nature of the new information that requires the consideration.
Ms Bowman, CEO.
Thank you very much for your question. We will send some additional information to elected members just to make sure it's really clear as to the reasons why. Thanks for your question.
Are there further questions on this item? All right, thank you. Moving on to E25. RFQ 242514, refurbishment of change rooms at Corunda Reserve. Councillor Green has an interest and he will be disconnected for the discussion. Thank you. Now, can I remind elected members that this does have a confidential attachment, and if you wish to discuss the confidential attachment, can you please notify us so we can put this at the end of the meeting and go behind closed doors for the discussion on the attachment only. Okay, thank you. Oh, we need 1 moment to disconnect Councillor Green. Okay, prior to discussion on this item, Ms Ward, Manager of City Building and Projects, will provide a short officer presentation. Thank you, Ms Ward. You'll need to use a microphone, otherwise we will not be able to hear you, nor will those online.
Is that better? Okay, thank you. Yes, as the slide indicates, I'm here to talk about the proposed appointment of a contractor to deliver the Corunda Reserve change room upgrades. The Corunda change room change room requires refurbishment to meet community need and provide contemporary facilities for all user groups out there. The key elements of the refurbishment include upgrade to electrical and plumbing fittings and fixtures, We're also upgrading structural components both within the change room and the large veranda area out the front. We will paint ceilings and replace where needed. We're also doing large demolition works to the flooring, so the large concrete pad will be replaced and then new flooring put over the top. And we will be installing and upgrading all partitions to ensure gender-neutral compliant facilities out there. This does include additional pans and showers to change rooms 3 and 4, as well as an additional UAT. So they're the major components of the refurbishment. So why we're here tonight, we invited 6 companies via WALGA's preferred building panel in July 2025, based on their experience and expertise. Now, there are a number, far more than 6 on the building panel. However, we culled those down to companies that have delivered this type of work before, worked in a local government context, and could deliver this project successfully for us. The decision to invite submission via the WALGA's preferred panel is not our preferred procurement method, but it was done so based on the timing. So we plan to be out on site by late September, early October. And given the caretaker period, this was our preferred method of engagement. It is more advantageous for us to construct this type of project during the summer months for a number of reasons. However, this particular period, October through to March, is less impactful for user groups out there. We've got a large netball club that run out at Karoonda, as well as a large football club as well. So not only would it be more expensive and impactful to clubs, because we would have to put more enabling works out there in winter, constructability in summer is far better for us as well. So 2 companies of the 6 responded to our invitation and they attended the compulsory site visit. So a little bit about the preferred supplier for you. So our preferred supplier outsourced the other panel member on capacity to deliver and methodology. These are 2 very critical key components to deliver a successful project. The preferred supplier demonstrated a comprehensive approach to the project via their methodology. We could clearly see that this particular company knew how to deliver this project simply by the way in which they went about the response to our criteria. They had a detailed safety planning as well, so safety is very important here at the City of Melville. We only want to deal with contractors that safety is a priority for them as well. And they had clear allowances both for electrical and safety components. Now, not so much safety, but very much electrical. In refurbishment, that's often where our variations lie. And so they actually had really thought out and went through in the site visit to really understand the electrical capacity out there. These qualitative outcomes are very important to us, but also it was the capacity to deliver. So the project team that the preferred supplier put through is experienced. They've delivered these types of projects over the last 15 years. And that's really what we want to see. So we do want to see an experienced group deliver for us. So those qualitative elements, we feel, provides a level of confidence for this company to deliver our project on time and on budget.
Thank you very much, Ms Wood. Are there any questions from elected members? Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There was no mention of the time of completion. Did you say March?
March.
Because
yes.
they keep asking when would it start and when would it finish. So is that a good estimation?
Absolutely. October through to March. That's the end of March.
Thank you. Councillor Barber.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you. I'm just interested, I don't recall very often that it has to come to council that you give a blurb about their preferred supplier. Is this a new thing, or is this something I've missed, or I'm just not sure. Do we normally do this?
Ms Bowman, CEO.
Thank you, Councillor Barber. We probably don't normally go into as much detail regarding the evaluation panel and as to why they believe it's the best value and best outcome, but we obviously can't discuss the confidential attachments to the agenda. So Ms Ward has actually made sure she hasn't covered anything confidential, but still providing a bit more detail than usual regarding the evaluation panel's recommendation to council. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Ward.
Councillor Spanbrook.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Has there been any financial contribution from the clubs, please?
No, no financial contributions from the clubs, but there is 100,000 in external funding for this project.
Oh, the clubs actually, they did some fundraising, or is that what you're referring to?
No, no, it's an external grant through Department of Communities.
Okay, was that applied for by the club or through the city?
Ms Ward? I'm not sure. I believe the clubs advocated for it, but the actual funding is in our name.
Okay, well, just were the clubs actually requested to put any financial contribution towards this?
Ms
No.
Ward? No.
No, sorry, thank you.
Okay, it's just, I wonder, actually, maybe I need to have a conversation because I know that a few years ago, all clubs were required to put, you know, like even a small amount, you know, financial contribution towards, you know, such an upgrade, you know, as this. But anyway, thank you.
Okay, any further questions? Thank you, Ms Ward. I think they're finished. Now, we need to pause a moment to let Councillor Green back online.
Madam Mayor, I have to leave now. I just thought I'd let you know.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Wheatland. Thank you for letting us know, and thank you for your presence tonight.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, we now have Councillor Green back online.
Yes.
Councillor Lee has declared an interest in the next item. Councillor Lee, I invite you to leave. Thank you very much. UP 2578, Review of Local Planning Policy, 1.2, Short-Term Accommodation. Prior to discussion on this item, Mr Capellucci, Acting Manager Development Approvals, and Mr Free, Director of Planning, will provide a short officer presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. If you can just go to the next slide, please. So just as a bit of an introduction, this sort of change to the policy are results of state government legislation. This is a result of state government legislation changes to sort of how short-term rental is going to work in Western Australia. Also is a result of influx in short-term rental accommodation applications the city has received and statewide, and feedback from the State Administrative Tribunal on current local planning policies at previous tribunal matters. A review of amending LPP 1.21, our current short-term rental policy, was prepared and presented to Council at its March OCM to be advertised for comment. As on the screen, during the advertising period, which was a 21-day consultation, there were 10 submissions received, 5 objections, 3 supports with concerns, and 2 supports. Let's go to the next slide, please. So in terms of legislative context behind the review and amendment to LP 1.21, this is sort of based on changes to the Short-Term Accommodation Act in 2024 that came into play, as well as the need now to register hosted and unhosted short-term rental accommodations and renew these annually every year. This excludes, however, hotels, service apartments, tourist and visitor accommodation and lodging houses, where there is a sole operator and management group involved in those types of occupations and accommodation types. At this stage, there's approximately 180 homes on the register within the city, and I guess the Planning and Development Act, Local Planning Schemes Amendment, and the regulation adopted this change in 2024. So as a result of this, there were inclusions of new land use land use and definitions, which include, as listed on the slide, tourist and visitor accommodation, hosted and short-term rental accommodation, unhosted short-term rental accommodation, short-term rental accommodation, short-term rental arrangement, and unhosted short-term rental accommodation. As a result of these, LPS 6 has been updated via Scheme Amendment 11 to reflect these changes in definitions and assign appropriate permissibility to these particular land uses. Next slide. So this is just to explain the short-term rental process in a bit more detail and what is required. There are basically 3 avenues for needing or not needing development approval. The first is if it's a hosted accommodation, which is situations where the property owner or representative, the host on site, lives on the premises while renting out a room or space to guest. In this situation, just need to register it. You don't actually need to lodge for a development application. While the second is related to unhosted accommodation, which is where guests have exclusive use of the entire property and the host is not present during the rental period. If this occurs and it's less than 90 days, just need to register again on the register. But if this is more than 90 days, that's when a development application is required. Next slide. Go to the next slide. Thank you. So in summary, some of the key changes to the local planning policy are as follows. So I guess the main sort of ones are sort of the inclusions of upfront purpose, a citation to the policy, as well as an updated policy scope and definition section. General site and characteristics have been updated to allow, in particular, probably the most important one, allow greater radius from activity centres. Introduction of preferred operational characteristics, clarification on both general and site characteristics being applicable as well, and also number of persons limit being removed because this is now covered by the regulations. Next slide. So continuing on these changes, so there's ones in regards to sort of car parking, some more clarification for the management plans needing to address car parking on particular sites where short-term rental is proposed, signage requirements, clarification about that in residential zones in particular, operational management plans, renaming this to be consistent with other land uses when it's required, consultation updates and rationalisation, the option for temporary approvals where there's clarification as to when this would be applied, rationalisation of compliance with other legislation, and also the LP 1.3 bed and breakfast accommodation now being deleted as a result of this policy amendment because the regulations LP 6 have made LP 1.13 now redundant. Now on to the next slide. So basically following advertising after the March OCM, which was adopted to be advertised, objections and support with concerns were received during submissions. The primary of the submission of the objections raised comments on preferred undesirable characteristics and the criteria within the LPP. Matters raised were needed to be addressed were in regards to those listed on the slide under submission. So firstly, in terms of changing the term undesirable to non-compliant, so we have clarified to make it clear as to how this section is to apply. Then obviously there's concerns around enforcement, where now we have, as a result of the submission received, compliance and conditions to approval to assist in enforcement will address that. The submission around existing approved short-term rental causing issues in tourist accommodation. So we've made this suggestion to make a more formal complaint to the city to investigate this as sort of the way to address that comment. And then the others on the slides, comments 4 and 5 have been resulting in no change as sort of outlined on the presentation. So next slide. So in summary, only minor modifications have been made to the local planning policy that was advertised for comment in relation to clarifying application of both site and locational characteristics being required to be met for the city to support the proposal. As such, LP is recommended to be adopted. Following adoption, we will notify submitters of the outcome. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cappellucci. Are there any questions? Councillor Robbins.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thanks, Mr. Cappellucci, for your presentation. I've just got 2 questions. The first one is with regards to a comment made with regards to some of the feedback that we received that said that it would be better considered at a later time, essentially after the policy had been tested or been operational for a while. Just wanted to ask what the mechanism is for capturing, I guess, and saving or storing that feedback so that we can ensure that it actually does get addressed at a future point in time. And my second question is just if you can explain the difference between the city like the process or the difference between the applications received by the city and the registrations via the state government portal. Thank you.
Mr Cappellucci?
Through you, Madam Mayor. So in regards to sort of the first question, we do have like a record of all the submissions received on policies going in our sort of like a record keeping process. So I guess if we do look at amending this policy going forward, we again refer those previous submissions that were received, take those on board and consider them in sort of future amendments going forward. In relation to the second query, can you just repeat sort of what that was again for me, sorry?
Yeah, so I'm just trying to understand if there's a difference between like the city receiving applications. I can read out the bit that I wasn't sure about. So it says, following the adoption of the policy, the city has received approximately 35 applications relating to STRA proposals. And then it says, based on STR registrations via the state government portal, approximately 190 properties across the city are registered for use. So I'm just wondering what the difference is between the 35 that we've received and the 190, which I guess is a total, with the ones received through the state government portal included.
Through you, Madam Mayor. So I guess that sort of clarified that 35, we've received development applications based on those, whereas the 190 can be ones that just have to register themselves. They might not actually need a DA. So there might be ones that are sort of the hosted, unhosted, or don't need a development application. That's all, any type of short-term rental accommodation has to register on the register. It doesn't account for all the ones that do need a DA, which would be the 35 of those 190.
Okay, thank you. So can I just have a follow-up question? So if the registration is required but not the development approval, then they just register through the state government portal. But if the development approval is required, then they have to come to us. Is that correct?
Through you, Madam Mayor, that's correct. So they have to register, but also come through us for a DA when they need the application. Yep.
Right, are there any further questions? Oh, Councillor Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can I just ask, and perhaps this is to governance, I know there's a document that's been created that gives a map of all of the city's activity centres and identifies the 200-metre area around that. Could that be forwarded to elected members? Because between now and the meeting, elected members will probably need to check that map to make sure that they don't have a proximity interest. I've just belatedly realised that I do have a proximity interest in relation to that matter, so I'm sending through an advice now, but other elected members might be in the same boat, that they are surprised to learn that they're caught in this as well. Thank you.
Okay, are there any further questions? Councillor Barber.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you for your presentation, and it sounds good. It sounds like we're moving in the right direction. I am a little bit worried about the compliance issue, and if they just have to register if they're going to do 90 days or less, we've got no way of knowing whether they're doing that or not, do we? There's no... I'm just scared it's going to be a compliance nightmare. But we're relying on neighbours. Is that what we're relying on? And can you help me out there? And what if we discover that they are doing it for longer than 90 days? What's the procedure then?
Yep. Through you, Madam Mayor. So I guess, yeah, we do have access to the register as well, to the state register, so we can sort of check as well if there are potentially complaints being received where properties are sort of not having the necessary approval. We can sort of check the register and check those properties to go, yep, they are now going over what they've registered for and do require like retrospective development application. So potentially contacting those owners through either plan or compliance teams to sort of ensure they lodge the development applications to be lodged for that. But it will be more resourcing to sort of keep up with potentially the ones that haven't lodged DA when they're required to do so.
I wondered if there would be a consequence of them losing their licence. What would constitute a short-term accommodation losing their licence?
So yeah, through the register, the government agency looking up has confirmed like if there are people breaching what they've listed on the register, so not complying with what they've registered for, that registration can be revoked and removed if they don't comply with what they've actually registered for.
Okay, thank you. Are there any further questions? If there's no further questions, thank you very much, Mr. Cappellucci. Appreciate your presentation and answers. Okay, moving on to the next item. Yes, he's back. Thank you, Councillor Lee. The next item is UP 2579, Bull Creek and Murdoch Station precinct plans. Are there any questions for Mr. Free, Acting Director of Planning? If there's no questions, I'll move on to the next item. Councillor Lee has declared an interest, and I have also declared an interest. So can Councillor Barber please come up here and take the chair?
The next item is UP 2580 Canning Bridge Activity Centre Plan Review. And prior to discussion on this item, Mr Ben Ashwood, Acting Manager Strategic Planning, and Mr T Free, Director of Planning, will provide a short officer presentation.
Thank you, Councillor Barber. Yeah, just jumping to that first slide, this is following on from the EMES presentation last week. We'll be just catching up on the background for those who weren't in attendance and obviously anyone online. The first slide will just provide some brief context. Council will be aware, if we can just skip to the next one. Yep, that Hatch Roberts Day were commissioned by Council to prepare an updated Canning Bridge Activity Centre plan. At the ordinary meeting of Council in April 2023, Council chose to support the draft that had been prepared by Hatch, subject to some modifications. One of those was being the removal of bonus height in exchange for community benefits. The DPLH, Department of Planning, Lands and Heritage, is currently assessing that draft and determining its suitability. Notwithstanding the fact Council didn't support bonus height, the department have reached out and asked the city to provide clarification on an aspect of the draft put forward by Hatch, which in relation to the bonus height provisions. Just for context, Hatch had sought to require developments to provide community benefit commensurate to a percentage of the cost of building the bonus floors. So they were suggesting 5% of the cost of the additional bonus height being sought. Next slide, please. Despite Council not being in favour of the approach, ultimately a decision was made that it was in our best interest to respond to the DPLH request. A scope was prepared and approved by Council in December last year, and we recently engaged Niche and Solve Property to do that work for us. The report has been completed in accordance with the scope of works. Next slide, please. Just briefly to go through the recommendations from the report, the Council scope had included recommended modelling at 3%, and 5% and 10% of the cost of constructing the cost of those additional floors to be provided to via community benefit, either cash in lieu or on-site development. The Niche ultimately determined that at any of those ratios it was practical to the feasibility worked for developers. So basically, if a developer was seeking bonuses less than 40% in addition to those base heights, then we should reasonably apply the 5%, or that would be feasible for a developer to provide. If the development bonus was in excess, at least 40%, then it was reasonable to calculate that at 10% of those additional floor heights. The consultant did provide some clarification on whether it was preferable to afford that bonus in height versus plot ratio being total floor area of a building versus the additional vertical height of a building. Basically, the suggestion was that if the outcome was about best quality design, it was preferable to focus on offering bonuses in height rather than plot ratio, although that it was noted that that would still potentially result in an increased plot ratio. In terms of cash in lieu, the consultant did provide some commentary on, I suppose, the risk potentially to the city in pursuing that approach, noting that cash in lieu contributions do require a more robust framework and a developer contribution scheme, something the city hasn't yet developed. So that will form part of future discussions as we understand that the actions listed for Council from council for the city to focus on post CBACP review include consideration of a community benefit framework. The consultant finally did ultimately recommend the city prepare a community infrastructure needs assessment to help prioritise future community benefits, noting again that that was listed as a council resolution to be actioned in the future. Next slide, please. The report also responds to the council endorsed scope by considering how the community benefits are sort of rationalised for developments that we've seen to date. So they've sort of tried to quantify those community benefits with a monetary figure and consider them against the proposed percentages. They've also done some work to, I suppose, appreciate the impact of bonus height on the amenity of the precinct, including some consideration of building bulk, shadowing, tree canopy loss, and some other secondary concerns. Finally, if I just move on to the stakeholder input, as recently as last week, we did meet with the CRG, the Community Reference Group, who have been involved in the review of the CBACP across the whole journey, and they had some input in the draft report that had been prepared by the consultant. They have recommended some changes which they sent to us in a short document just recently. This has resulted in some very minor modifications to the content of the report, specifically removing comments in the report that were attributed to them as a group, and they also sought to have some confirmation around how bonus height is not essential for some of these or for all these developments to be economically viable in the Canning Bridge, similar to Councillor Ross's comment from the EMES. Those have been accommodated in the draft report. CRG has also provided some broader commentary on community benefits as they consider it, and they've asked that we, I suppose, acknowledge them in our reporting. So just to the last slide, if I may, to account for these, the city is preparing an update to the agenda for next week's meeting, and that will include some modified attachments, a track change version of that consultant's report to see those modifications I just mentioned, obviously a final report and the CRG commentary. There will also be a modification to the council report to recommend that council submit CRG's commentary as an attachment to the report. However, noting that we still remain of the view that bonus height is not supported by council.
Well, thank you very much, Mr Ashwood, and thank you for our elected member education session. Has anybody got any questions? Councillor Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It strikes me that if we go ahead with a recommendation that contributions are calculated at 5%, unless they go above 40% of the building height, in which case they jump up to 10%, that we'll be getting a lot of applications for 33.5% increases in building height. Would it be preferable to scale contributions from a low of 5% to a maximum of 10% to try and stop developers, picking the arbitrary floor below 40% to halve their contribution?
Through you, Madam Chair.
Mr Ashwood, sorry.
Thank you. Good question, Councillor Fitzgerald. It's definitely something that can be provided for if it was a position of council's. Just for simplicity, I think the consultant thought fit to just have a more rudimentary two-stage approach. I think ultimately, as was acknowledged in the EMES last week, the profitability is still there at the 10% mark, such that I think if the ultimate decision of the department does entertain bonuses, and those bonuses are meaningful, in excess of 40%, there's a very real chance that developers will chase those maximum benefits and therefore will be obliged to meet the 10%. I don't necessarily expect that they will restrain themselves for fear of having to be charged that extra 5%, noting that both will ultimately prove profitable.
Thank you, Mr Ashwood. Are there any other questions? Councillor Woodall.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. Once this is submitted to the department, is there any indication as to when a decision will be made? And also, just following on from that, I assume the time frame for a decision to be made has technically elapsed. Is that correct?
Through you, Madam Mayor, Madam Chair. Yes, I think you're absolutely correct. There is a ambiguous time frame on when a decision is to be made, and there would have been a lapse in that final extension of time request that was made to end last year. Ultimately, the city's decision to prepare this report has served as a de facto extension of time by virtue of that agreement. We would expect that a decision could be made in a matter of months, but recognising that the department still has to make a recommendation to the West Australian Planning Commission, who will have to find a time on their agenda to meet. So I wouldn't expect a decision in any less than a few months' time, but we will be putting every pressure we can on the department to hurry that along.
Just to follow up, thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. Would it be possible either, whether in the officer recommendation or as an amendment from council, to request that a decision be made by a particular date, just so that, given how long this has been going on for, understanding that obviously they'll, we can't control when they're going to make the decision, well, without going to court, but just to try and, you know, ask them to expedite it, I guess, put some pressure on them.
Mr Ashwood?
Through you, Madam Chair. Yes, I think that would be possible for council to make that recommended modification next week at the meeting, and we would be happy to try and accommodate that. Whatever date was ultimately put on, as you say, would be taken on notice, I suspect, but whether it was actually given any realistic consideration, I suppose, would be for the department to answer.
Thank you. And Councillor Green, you have a question.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member. Yeah, I was just wondering, it strikes me that we're perhaps contradicting ourselves by setting a level that we've been advised is still profitable for bonus heights. And with that in mind, is there? I'm just wondering what you would, how far could we potentially deviate from the advice we've had from the consultants? Do you think before before the sort of credibility of what we submit is through the eyes of the DPLH is kind of compromised, if you know what I mean? So how much higher? I know it's a difficult question and a crystal ball probably needed, but do you think there's an ability for us to say, well, 10 and 20 or 7.5 and 15 or something like that? Although I would also concur with Councillor Fitzgerald that I think we should probably ratchet it up a little bit more. I think there's a question in there somewhere. Sorry. Do you think I guess how much wiggle room do you think we have in terms of perhaps adjusting the percentage figures that have come through from the consultants?
Mr Ashwood.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Look, I think this is as much a question for the consultants. Luckily, they did provide some guidance on this question last week when we did discuss it at the EMS. Stuart from Solve Property did suggest that we were sort of reaching that upper limit at that 10% rate that was applicable. As Councillor Lim acknowledged, as you build more floors, the marginal opportunity does increase, such that we saw that I think at 60% there was an opportunity to potentially charge 15% on the cost of those additional floors. We did briefly discuss whether that was suitable, and council's obviously within their remit to recommend that sort of acknowledgement be given to that section of the report that does speak to that sliding scale. I sort of hesitated in that sense because I suppose if we continue to acknowledge that with higher heights comes additional bonuses, what does that say about our comfort with bonuses that are being pursued? And if we are wanting to obviously have no bonuses, and we're acknowledging that even at a modest height, the percentage we can achieve is not inconsequential, it's really, I suppose, a question for council as to whether they would like us to make separate note, as either as an attachment or in the recommendation, to the opportunity to ultimately request more at a higher height. I think the fact that the 5% already does serve as a constraint for development bonuses less than 40% is indicative of the fact that it's not a free-for-all, and even at that 10% we sit in what is a marginal range at that 40% ratio. So it's not that it's exorbitantly profitable, it's acknowledging that there has to still be a ultimate benefit for the applicant in wanting to be incentivised to build above that height. The example that Stuart gave in the presentation last week was that Forbes, in pursuing their 3 stories, 3-story bonus on the 10 stories and giving up approximately 11%, I think they had to give up 50% of the profit that they made on those additional floors they built. So whether Stuart was sort of insinuating, I suppose, that anything more than that would have been detracting from the motivation for Forbes to actually build those extra stories in the first place.
Thank you, Mr Ashwood. Councillor Ross, do you have a question?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, I have. Given that this review or report was requested by DPLH to examine the feasibility of these constructions, and that Niche has recognized or reported that it is feasible for these developments to be developed and profitable without any bonus heights and without contributions, then surely the city's position that they made that there should not be any bonus heights should be supported rather than now making any concessions, because the city said and made a decision that there should be no bonus heights. It was feasible. The reports come back and says it is feasible. The profits of between 17% and 35% that's available, that has been made by the developers. And the actual main reason for developers not being able to build any more at the moment is that they're producing a high-end product that is a very small market for. And that's really the reason for the slowdown in development, not because of any lack of profit making. So why are we still talking about bonus heights and community benefits when we know the community benefits haven't been actual community benefits, and it creates more problems in terms of accounting and in terms of pressures on the city and the amenity.
Mr Ashwood.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, thank you, Councillor Ross. I think we've sought to reiterate that fact in the modifications that you'll be able to see in the report that is going next week up in the executive summary, and in also the conclusions. We've asked that Niche reiterate the fact that not only council hasn't supported bonus height, but that ultimately the modelling has shown that even without bonuses, the development outcomes are profitable, making it clear that whilst we accept that we're responding to a request from the department, there is a futility to it, I suppose, acknowledging that it isn't essential that bonuses be entertained.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for Mr Ashwood? No? Thank you very much, Mr Ashwood, for your presentation. Right, we need to bring the Mayor and Councillor Lee back in.
Okay, so now we're moving on to motions with previous notice. Notice of motion, dual naming of cemetery. The motion was proposed by Councillor Lim. I also advise that an officer note was distributed with the agenda on Friday, 12th of August. Ms Pickering, Director of Community Development, is available to take questions on this item. Are there any questions for her? Councillor Woodall.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just from reading Councillor Lim's motion and the intent of it, I was a bit puzzled by the officer advice note, which talked about, I think, dual naming, whereas from what my understanding or reading of Councillor Lim's motion was, it was more focused on looking at a Melville-centric or Melville-related name instead of calling it Fremantle Cemetery. It was about an alternative name. So I just wondered if there were any comments on that.
Ms Pickering?
Thank you for your question, Councillor Woodall. Sorry, I was just moving my chair. Yes, I think initially Councillor Lim was considering something that was more specific to its location within the city of Melville, like proximity within the city of Melville. However, in discussing the notice of motion with Councillor Lim and explaining the land gate process and preference for dual naming, that was where it was Councillor Lim was comfortable that that was the direction that the notice of motion went into, and so therefore that was the basis that the advice note was written.
Councillor Woodall?
So just to be clear then, there's not really going to be any Melville-specific reference in the actual name of the cemetery, assuming we go down that path.
Ms Pickering?
Thank you again for your question, Councillor Woodall. The dual naming is primarily around, and only if there is significant First Nations cultural significance around that site from a First Nations cultural perspective. And so from that respect, the name would be relevant to First Nations place names within the city of Melville, but not necessarily the current place names that the city of Melville has adopted for the area. Thanks.
Are there any further questions for Ms Pickering? If there are none, we'll move on to 15.2, notice of motion, additional green waste bins. This motion was proposed by Councillor Ross. Mr Maloney, Acting Director of Environment and Infrastructure, is available to take questions. Are there any? Councillor Woodall?
I assume that this would be looked into and there'd be a report on the costs associated with that service if there was a need for additional bins.
Mr Maloney?
Yes, through the chair. Thank you, Councillor. Yes, the report is it's requesting a report via the CEO, and the costs will all be supplied.
Okay, are there any further questions? All right, then we're moving on to the next item. Item 15.3, notice of motion, CB... Oh, is this one?
Can I ask a question on the previous motion, Madam Mayor?
Yes, Councillor Barber.
So this motion is just for the houses in Quintal Road, is that right? No, it's across the city. Beautiful. Thank you.
Sorry, pardon. What was your question?
All done.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I'd like to indicate that I will declare an interest, and councillor Barber, could you please take the chair again?
All right, good evening, everybody. We're up to notice of motion, CBACP and precinct plans in the LPS 6 review. This motion is proposed by Councillor Ross, and Mr Free, the Acting Director of Planning, is available to take questions on this item. Are there any questions? I think, yes, we'll have your comment, Councillor Ross, and then I think Mr Free would like to make some comments himself. So we'll start with you, Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We had a discussion this afternoon, which I think was quite productive, and the motion will be changed. And what we're seeking to do is see if council would be willing to approve going to Volga, so Volga could advocate on behalf of all the councils to have these changes made as a group rather than as a single local council. So that would avoid the expense of any legal advice, and hopefully any changes that are achieved would be more certain and solid rather than being done by one council. So that's where it's at the moment.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. That seems to make a lot of sense. Mr Free, would you like to add anything to Councillor Ross's comments? No?
No, we've had a number of discussions. No, that's nothing further to add.
All right, thank you. Councillor Edinger.
Thank you, Madam Chair. How long would it take for Wagga to begin to advocate on our behalf? Oh, okay.
Mr Free, would you like to have a go at that one?
Thank you for the question. It's difficult to put a definitive time frame on that. Yeah, so look, I'll just have to leave it at that. If we get support from other local governments that this is an issue that they'd like Welga to take up on behalf of local governments, some momentum may be built, and they may then be a little more proactive in dealing with the matter. But in the end, can't put a time frame on that. Sorry.
Yes, Councillor Ross.
I believe there's an upcoming Volga meeting or AGM where the matter could probably be raised as an initial point and then worked on, which might speed things up.
It's a great idea. Ms Newman, Head of Governance, would like to say something.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to raise that Councillor Lee also declared an interest in this matter and did leave the room for the discussion.
Thank you, Ms Newman. Councillor Edinger.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I just wanted to clarify with you, Mr Free, that what the intent of the motion is to have the whole city included in LPS 6, whereas currently we've been told that LPS 6 is for the bits in between the precinct plans. Is that correct? Does that make sense?
Mr Free?
Thank you for the question. I've assumed you're reviewing your entire scheme, but there are elements within the local government area where, as part of the review, you're looking to, or consideration is being given to increasing the density in some particular parts, which has generated quite a bit of feedback, and those areas, council, in considering what essentially the new scheme looks like, we'll need to consider whether those areas are appropriate for an increase in the zoning and at what density, or whether there are actually other sections of Melville where that's appropriate. So I understand what you're seeking to do is to review the entire scheme covering the entire local government area, but there are some particular hotspots that have been identified that the community has provided us with feedback on, if that makes sense.
Councillor
Councillor
Edinburgh?
Ross, is my assumption correct?
I think the main problem that it's trying to be addressed is that where there are due regard documents, there are discretionary abilities from the JDAP panel and others to go outside what's been specified there. There would need to be changes made to make all of those documents. So in LPS 6, Canning Bridge Activity Centre, all of the structure plans are referred to as due regard documents. If they were normalized or included in LPS 6, then the ability to go beyond those provisions would be more difficult. It's trying to provide certainty for developers and the community. That's what the aim is.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Are there any further questions? If not, we'll get the Mayor back in to close the meeting.
Okay, item 16, motions without previous notice. There are no motions without previous notice for discussion in this evening. All right, moving on to item 17, matters for which the meeting was closed to the public. There are no matters that were closed to the public at all. Yes, okay, so we're moving on to the closure. Prior to closing the meeting, I'd like to remind Council of the late items E2577, withdrawal from Resource Recovery Group, outcome of request for proposals for Regional Resource Recovery Centre operations and assets in Canning Vale, and a late item from the Governance Committee meeting last night. Now, these will be distributed this Friday, the 15th. For the purposes of the notes, can the following councillors please confirm they are still in attendance? Councillor Spanbrook.
In attendance, Madam Mayor, thank you.
Councillor Green?
Yes, still here.
Okay, thank you very much. There being no further business, I declare the meeting closed at 9:28 p.m. Thank you for your attendance.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.